When I got born again 30 years ago, the first book I read was the book of Revelation. I read about the Jewish people, the temple in Jerusalem, the 144,000 witnesses, and the Battle of Armageddon, which is in the Valley of Megiddo, which is in Israel. So my assumption was that it was common knowledge among all Christians that God still had a plan for the Jewish people, especially when it comes to the end times. To my surprise, the majority of Christians I met did not share the same views as me as it pertains to the Jewish people and to Israel. I discovered that the historical church ascribes to this teaching called replacement theology, the idea that the church has replaced the Jews because of their rejection of Jesus as Messiah, and that God had no longer any dealings with the Jews. Yes, God made a new covenant to bring Jew and Gentile together into one new creation, a new covenant. However, the Jews still have the Abrahamic covenant, a covenant without condition, an everlasting covenant. Over the years, I've taught many groups about God's current dealing with Israel and the Jews, and I've been met with three different beliefs. Ignorance. I didn't know God still had a plan for the Jews today. Opposition. No, God no longer deals with the Jews. They are no longer anything special. Anti-Semitism. They have done bad things and are bad people. I recommend every Christian who holds to one of those three beliefs I shared earlier to go and read Romans chapter 11. Here are some rebuttals. God has rejected the Jews. Has God rejected his people? By no means. The Jews cannot be restored to God. If they do not continue in their unbelief, will be grafted in, for God has the power to graft them in again. Jews will never believe in Jesus. A partial hardening has come upon Israel until the fullness of the Gentiles has come in. Notice it says partial hardening. That means at this time Jews are still coming to Jesus, not in big numbers, but they have been coming to Jesus over the past 2 millennia. But there is an appointed time coming when the last Gentile gets saved. There will be a softening and opening of the eyes for the Jews. Zechariah chapter 12 verse 10 says, "And I'll pour out on the house of David and the inhabitants of Jerusalem a spirit of grace and pleas for mercy, so that when they look on me, on whom they have pierced, they shall mourn for him as one mourns for an only child." God has no further plans for the Jews, and in this way all Israel will be saved. The deliverer will come from Zion. He will banish ungodliness from Jacob, and this will be my covenant with them when I take away their sins. God has revoked their special position, for the gifts and the calling of God are irrevocable. Can't be any clearer than that. What God has granted to the Jewish people through the Abrahamic covenant cannot be revoked, and is not based on their faithfulness. So yeah, if Romans 11 was the only passage in the New Testament that spoke of God's faithfulness to the Jewish people and to Israel, it is enough to show that God still has a plan for them. Thanks for watching.